Error404. So could I have someone from Error404 introduce yourself and start your presentation, please?
Okay, so hi, my name's Luke, and we're Error404, and we worked on Challenge 2. So next slide, please. So we implemented our chatbot with a Facebook Messenger user interface that we used to extract the user input and then process via Python, and then deliver the correct diagnostic advice based on user manuals that are given by the end user. So we used a spacey NLU to interpret the user input and identify possible issues from instruction manuals. For each solution, we implemented a score system which would aggregate over time, meaning that the more that a possible fault or course of action is confirmed as being useful, the earlier it's recommended on future runs. So next slide, please. If you can play the video. So this is an example of us contacting the troubleshooter. And in this, currently it's, we set it up for the milling machine. However, it just depends on which user manual you've created. It's not dependent, nothing's been hard coded. It's identified the milling machine as the machine we have an issue with. And based on what we've input now, it sends towards the correct node in the decision tree, or it starts to suggest things. We just input that hasn't worked, and then a second option hasn't worked, and then the third one has. Now, once we've reset the conversation and we input the same scenario, the solution which did work should be suggested straight away, which it is, showing that over time, the more that you use the chatbot, the more solutions are successful, the more likely they're going to be suggested earlier on. So next slide, please. So in terms of the compliance with Shoestring, it's low cost. The bot can theoretically run on anything that can run Python, so a PC or a Raspberry Pi, and you just need a Facebook Messenger account in order to contact the bot. Everything we used was off the shelf. And there were no licenses and no proprietary or paid for software, so it was all free to use. So next slide, please. So the benefits for SMEs is that employees could use their own devices to access the chatbot. It's non-intrusive. You just need to download the repository and then install some Python libraries. And currently only uses one. Is only set up with one manual. However, there could be any manual. You don't need to change the code in order to read from the manual and then generate the decision tree. So as long as the files are set up in the correct format, the chatbot would be applicable to any machine. And that is our presentation. So if you've got any questions.
So one question would be, to what extent do you think an SME would really have an employee that would be able to actually do this or deploy this system? What sort of capabilities would they have to have?
Capabilities. It would just be, we'd be able to provide an instruction manual in order to set up the CSV document, which would then be read from in order to generate the decision tree. Those instructions would be included when this was given to SMEs. So that should be very straightforward, and the instructions given for that will be fairly high level. That is really the only user input that would be required.
So if sorry.
That's fine. Go, please go.
So if I'm an SME and I engage with you, I just give you the manual and then away we go, or I just take the manual in PDF format and load it up, do I? How does that work?
No, the SME themselves would have to be able to set up that particular file in the format. I wasn't personally responsible for the setting up of the user manual to create the decision tree. So if anyone from my team who wants to comment on that.
Yeah, so the user manual will have consists of the machine, the trouble, the analysis, and the solution. So this is the chain that we are using, and this is the format that we're using, the CSV as well. If the user manual is already in this format, then we can directly input it into the CSV, and using that will provide us the data frame, and we can use that to generate the output. If something, the user manual is something more complicated, then they probably have to decipher it and into these 4 columns, which the machine, trouble, analysis, and the solution.
Thanks very much, guys. Thank you for your presentation.